The Bitcoin halving is kind of a big deal. And in this video, I want to talk to you about why I believe this halving event could be the fundamental catalyst that finally sends Bitcoin to $100,000. It's optimistic. I want to make that very clear right up front, but it's definitely possible. And I'll do my best to rationalize this thesis as we jump into the charts a little later. My name's Royce Jacob, and welcome back to Waves Capital. In front of us, as you can see, is the Bitcoin halving clock. The estimated 2024 halving date is April 17th of 2024, 133 days from the recording of this video, which is December 5th. That's good to know. You guys can set it on your calendar. But what is the Bitcoin halving? Okay, for that, we're going to jump into Investopedia. We're going to keep this quick, okay? You can read over the entirety of this article for yourself. If you're unfamiliar with the halving, then there's a lot of great content out there or, great articles like this one that you can read over. But for the purposes of this video and more focusing on price targets, I just want to keep it quick and read some of these key takeaways. Okay, so the Bitcoin halving, an event where the reward for mining Bitcoin transactions is cut in half. One of the most pivotal events on Bitcoin's blockchain is a halving, where the reward for mining is cut in half. Since 2020, the network participants validating transactions have been awarded 6.25 Bitcoin for each block successfully mined. The next halving is expected to occur in early to mid 2024. Again, April 17th as of today. That's just the trajectory the blockchain's going on. When the block reward will fall to 3.125. So it's called the halving because the block reward is cut in half, okay? Over time, the impact of each halving will diminish as the block reward approaches 1 Satoshi. So the primary reason that the halving is a net positive event for Bitcoin price is simple supply and demand economics, right? The less of something that is pumped into circulation, the more value it becomes. Granted, the demand factor is still there, which with Bitcoin, it's pretty damn likely, at least in my opinion, that demand will stay, if not appreciate for many reasons that I trust a lot of you are already aware of. So we're not going to get into that. Big Bitcoin guys over here. Okay, so key takeaways. Bitcoin halving event occurs when the reward for mining Bitcoin transactions is cut in half. Halvings reduce the rate at which new coins are created and thus lower the available amount of new supply. Get supply and demand economics 101 right here. Bitcoin last halved on May 11th, 2020, 4 years ago. Crazy time, resulting in a block reward of 6.25 BTC. The final halving is expected to occur in about 2140 when the number of Bitcoin circulating will reach the theoretical maximum supply of 21 million BTC. And keep in mind, you guys, that is at the Genesis block, at the genesis of Bitcoin, 21 million was the supply coded into the blockchain. But in those early years when, you were using Bitcoin to buy pizza, like many Bitcoins to buy a single pizza, it's suspected that about 3 million were lost. Okay, obviously give or take, that number's speculative, but many reputable individuals believe that number is around 3 million of Bitcoin that just have been lost and are unlikely to be recovered. Okay, so that's important to keep in mind. The more, again, I don't want to say accurate, but a more reasonable maximum supply is about 18, maybe 19 million. Okay, so that's again, we have 133 days. More important for those of you who may be watching this later, April 17th, 2024 is when this Bitcoin halving occurs. And that, as I just alluded to, could be very, very good news for price action. I do want to say, as we look at the chart here, that in May of 2024, or of 2020, I'm sorry, when, it's like right after that initial COVID shock where we didn't see much happen in Bitcoin, but we all know what happened after that once the Fed started, printing money and whatnot, once the market started going ballistic. I do think that's different this time around. Again, this past halving happened at one of the most kind of crazy macroeconomic times in our generation, maybe in the last century. So that's important to remember. And I do think it'll be different this time. I do think that more, and again, that the 2021 rally had a lot of people interested in Bitcoin. More people got educated on Bitcoin, on what the halving is. So I do think that there's a higher likelihood that those who have been educated will front run the Bitcoin halving, and it's kind of it may be a buy the hype, sell the news event, and that kind of plays into this technical thesis as well. Okay, so also little caveat here, this is a fresh Bitcoin chart right before, for this video specifically, I got a fresh Bitcoin chart, no prior trend lines or levels of resistance, etc. These are stick figure trend lines. And to any of you who want to dispute the validity of stick figure trend lines, I must say that I believe you simply haven't been trading enough, and I will not be convinced otherwise. But we are going to be using stick figure trend lines because honestly, over past decade of me looking at charts, I found that this is way more, probably the single most effective indicator, simple yet effective indicator that you can use as far as trading is concerned, especially when it comes to longer term price action. Okay, so that's the caveat here. Before we talk long-term price action, hint, hint, meant to grab the arrow, meant to grab the target, there we go, third time's the charm, why I think that $100,000 could nicely coincide with the halving on top of some short-term price action, just to create some relevance for those of you who are watching near the posting of this video. I do want to talk about Riot a little bit. Okay, Riot Platforms, the OG, one of the first videos I ever made in investment, one of the first stocks or assets in general that I ever made an investment video about, is doing well. Okay. This is a short excerpt from my Trade Alert newsletter this morning. You can see here that I talk a little bit about how I'm trading my Riot contracts and how I plan to trade them from here. Just to give you guys, if you aren't part of Waves Capital yet, an insight as to what our morning newsletters look like. And I talk about Riot every day and a lot of the other positions. It's important to remember that just in my options portfolio, Riot only consumes 10 to 15, maybe 20% of the portfolio at a given time, and it's one of 15 to 20 positions, okay? So Riot is looking good, but I will say that we are starting to look a little overbought. That'll make sense as we look into Bitcoin as well. So just as far as the short term is concerned, I want to read this one sentence from this piece of the newsletter because it'll apply to the bull market that we're already in, but the way things are going, the momentum that is building, I think we're just going to get deeper and deeper into this bull market cycle. And, this is important to know. So it's easy to get greedy when the bulls are running, but it's critical to keep a cool head on your shoulders when the hot heads enter the picture. Always prioritize rationale over emotion. Okay. So today, as you can see here, again, this is a microcosm of kind of how I'll trade when things are going ballistic. I had 30 total January Riot contracts, and this morning I sold 10 of them while Riot was up. Riot actually ended up closing the day down. Sold them, or not down, but around 1% up. I sold, I think, when they were 6 to 7% up. So again, it's good to take profits. It's critical to take profits when things are running, regardless of whether or not you think it'll continue to run. That's just the responsible thing to do. Okay, so this is just a little side note, it's a little tangent, but I do think it's important for all of you to understand if you are involved in crypto, especially options on Bitcoin miners during this crazy but exciting time. Don't get greedy. Just be reasonable and stay cool in a hot market. Okay, once again, before we move on to Bitcoin on the charts, if you guys do want my daily newsletters, if you want my daily opinion on Bitcoin, on Riot, on literally how I'm trading my personal portfolio on a day-to-day basis. These are daily newsletters, okay? Every day here for you guys. It's my complete portfolio and daily newsletter. This is the first link in the description to get here, okay? With this, you will receive everything this little box right here entails. I'll let you choose whichever pricing plan you'd like. You can check out this little video just about me giving my thoughts on this. But if you do choose to join, then we look forward to having you. Welcome to Waves Capital. It's going to be a freaking super exciting couple of months. But if not, no worries at all. I appreciate you watching this video right now. Okay, so that's that, you guys. Let's take a look at Bitcoin on the charts. We'll kick it off with the short term right now and talk about kind of where I see Bitcoin going. We're climbing to new 2023 highs literally as we speak, which you freaking love to see. But again, as you can see here, zoomed in a little bit there, Bitcoin is becoming extremely overbought as far as the shorter term is concerned. This top level, this dashed level on the RSI indicators, you can see where my cursor is hovering around, is around 80. Okay, so anything over 80 is considered extremely overbought. Okay, as you can see here, as we just zoom out, if you were to short something in the midst of the RSI sitting above 80, especially when it comes to dailies, you wait a little bit, that short will probably pay off, but that doesn't mean that we can't climb higher. Okay, once again, I do think by, again, a week from today, the 12th, by the 12th, we'll probably see a pretty meaningful correction in Bitcoin. I will just say right now, if we do see that correction, it should be somewhere around here, maybe just like the $41,000 region, retest broken resistance as new support, and then make our way back up to new highs. But if we continue to climb, which I think is possible, I do think that, and at some point, again, even if we correct first, I think it's extremely likely that this area of broken resistance, that broken support, that was in play from June 23rd of 2021 to May of 2022. So almost a year this line of resistance was in play. I do think that this will be retested as new resistance. This broken support will come into play as new resistance. Keep mixing them up, sorry. But if there is one thing, I should say one trend line specifically that's like one of my favorite to trade, it's this, especially when the line of support that was in play was so meaningful. It's almost, I would say, like in my experience, like 90, maybe 90% of the time, which is for trading is a crazy statistic. Again, that's just ballparking. Like 90% of the time, when you see a meaningful line of support broken, that will be used at some point in time as a new line of resistance. And I will genuinely be surprised if this doesn't come into play as resistance. And given Bitcoin's momentum right now, as I'm recording this, I would be surprised if we climb another 6% in the next few days. If we do, that would take us up to about $47,000. And I would say that is my short to medium term price target for Bitcoin. And of course, if we do see that, Riot, Bitcoin miners, Mar, whatever your miner of choice is, we'll likely track Bitcoin fairly closely. So if Bitcoin does see 47K, maybe consider taking some profits in some of your mining positions. Okay, that's just my 2 cents. That said, let's get on to the big 100K. Bitcoin, in the case that Bitcoin does manage to reclaim this broken ascending channel, which you can see here, I would say is kind of this top cyan line and this yellow line. Again, this broken line of supports that I believe will come into play as new resistance. If we do reclaim levels above this line of supports, that would technically get us back into this massive ascending channel. The top line of resistance on this ascending channel. It's also kind of a megaphone channel from a very macro perspective. Cyan line still the top line of resistance, but this red line right here is the bottom line. Megaphone channel because it's shaped like a megaphone. That's pretty, self-explanatory. But the top line of resistance still is in play. I do think that if Bitcoin really rallies, and keep in mind, you guys, this is optimistic once again, due to the fact that when we saw the last rally in 2021 and those highs in 2021, you have to remember that the Fed interest rates were at zero. Right now, they're sky high, so the value of the dollar and treasuries, etc., is much higher than they were back here. That's important to realize. So the environment is different. The macro is not as suitable for all-time highs, but the halving's coming up. The markets are getting excited again. Risk assets are regaining favor amongst investors and funds. The fundamental momentum behind Bitcoin will always be there, and I do think it's very possible that if Bitcoin tests my conservative because I want multiple touch points, multiple candle wicks touching this line of resistance, you could say again, you could honestly do that. That's ridiculous though. But you could do that. A lot of traders are going to be looking at that, which is pretty significantly different by, that could take us to $107,000. This, in my mind, is conservative. This is the line of resistance that is more likely to come into play if we do climb to 100K. And if this is to happen from current levels, that would take us up about 128, 129% to $100,000. This is the data that having this vertical just white line that I've drawn right here. That is April 17th. That coincides with this top line of resistance right at about $100,000, which, is pretty perfect. So if that happens, that's great. That would take us up 128% in the span of, let's get a time horizon here going, in 130 days, 133 days because it's the same day. So 133 days, 128% is possible. And over here, I have what happened back in December of 2020, I drew out what happened back here. 72 days, we climbed 227%. Just to remind us that it is absolutely possible for Bitcoin. The price was lower over here. Again, that kind of changes this situation a little bit. But overall, this is entirely possible. 100 and what do we do? Got to zoom out here again. 128% in the span of 133 days is more than possible. This is Bitcoin. That's, a percent of the day if you're going to average it like that. Obviously, there are going to be ebbs and flows, but overall, I think it's possible. Optimistic. I want to close it out by saying this is absolutely optimistic, but I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I know many of you are as well. So exciting times are ahead of us, team. Again, if you want to trade with me on a daily basis, it's the first link in the description. And if you are a part of Waves Capital, we're off to a strong start to the month of December. The new year should be awesome, and I would appreciate you guys if you let the people in the comments know how your experience is, okay? So good times are ahead of us, team. I'm excited to ride these waves with you. And until next time, always remember, take action, make waves. Peace.